Alright, I'm going to make a fiberglass resin mold of some worms I have. These are Yamamoto Senkos, and I like to remelt them and reuse them, and this comes in pretty handy. It's kind of cool to do too. A couple things you need: fiberglass resin, polyester. Need the cream hardener that goes with it. Measuring cup, important to get this. This stuff is good. It's the Right Stuff gasket maker. It dries in like a minute and it holds the worms to the pan. Need a good sized pan and some worms. Good way to do this is to take a worm, throw it in the pan like that, then fill the pan with water to about a ½ inch higher than the worm. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take that amount of water and pour it into the measuring cup to see how much resin you need. That'll give you an accurate measurement. That way you're not wasting resin and you don't mix up a batch that's too small and mess it up. Because the stuff's $10 a can, so save you a couple bucks if you do it like that. Measure it out first. Alright, take some gasket maker, run a bead down one side of it like this, and then stick it in the pan. Nice. Alright, I got 6 worms set up. I'm not going to use the 7th because look at this defect in there from the factory. Thanks a lot, Gary Yamamoto. Alright, anyway, that's getting melted down. I filled this up with water before I put the worms in, and it's going to take me 18 ounces of fiberglass resin. They call for 12 drops per ounce, so you can count that out. Or you can, this container is 29 fluid ounces. So I'm a little over half of what I'm going to use to pour this. So you can just do the math, use a calculator, whatever. Figure out how much it's going to be. Try to mix it accurately so it hardens nice. And I'm actually going to make this into a 2-piece mold because I like 2-piece better than 1-piece. The end result is a lot better. And I can get the same exact worm as that. And mine finished result is actually softer than his, so it's kind of strange. But the secret to the Yamamoto worms is super soft plastic, and they're loaded with salt. When you melt these things down, you really got to stir them up good. I'll make a video on how to do it, but they put so much salt in these lures, it's crazy. It's probably what gives it that super flexible, the good action in the water, because it's super soft and it has a lot of weight to it, so they flop around all over the place. Alright, let's get to pouring. Alright, make sure you mix your hardener good. Try to find somewhat of a level surface to do this with. Make sure you mix it up nice. Then I pour it over here and let it flow around the worms. If you look at it when you're done, you're not level, you have plenty of time to move it around, find a level spot. So that's a good idea. I'm going to move this. As it cools, you're going to start seeing these sides pull away from the pan because it shrinks just a touch as it cools down. But let it cool 100%. Don't rush it. Don't take it out while it's still hot. It'll take about an hour and it'll be ready to handle. About an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how much hardener you put in. If you put a little more in there, it'll be done quicker, and it'll get a little hotter. But just let it cool off, and then we're going to pull it out and see what it looks like. Alright, when it's all dry, it should pop right out of that pan, no problem, and I didn't even grease the pan. I will grease the mold when I do the second part of it, but it popped right out of that aluminum pan, nice. So let's take it apart and see what it looks like. Now you see there's imperfections in the mold, but that's irrelevant, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these out nice and thick. So it'll be twice that thickness when I'm done. So it'll be nice and strong. I'm going to pull these worms out. They should pull right out nice. If I can get them, I'll do them after, real careful. But I'm going to sand this down with a palm sander, get it nice and smooth, and get it to the half thickness point of the worm. So if the worm is a ½ inch thick, I'm going to make the cutaway here, the depth of where the worm sits, I'm going to make it a ½ inch thick. And then I'm going to stick them back in. You'll see it in the second pot. And I'm going to pour over the top of this with the rest of the resin. And then I'll have a perfect Gary Yamamoto Senko mold. And it'll hopefully work pretty good. Alright, here's a little clip of how I get the worms out. Nice. You gotta be careful. Use a fork. Dig the head out. And just give it a little pressure and go right behind it, just like this. And she'll come right out of that mold. And do that for all of them, then you're ready to sand it down. Alright, I just finished cleaning up the first portion of the mold. Sanded it nice and flat. And all I did is I took it down past all that casting crap that you would see on the edge here. And if I was to stick a worm in there, which I'll do right now, you'll see what kind of height we get out of it. Alright, there's one in there. And it's really irrelevant how far you sand it down, as long as you clean up those gaff edges. If you get it down to about halfway, it'll clean up nice. And when you go to pour the second portion of it, that's about how much it's sticking up. It doesn't matter if the tail is high or the end is low. It doesn't really matter, because the other layer of fiberglass on there is going to take over, and it's going to duplicate whatever's left here that you didn't sand. It's going to make a perfect replica. I mean, every line, every detail, it's pretty much perfect. Okay, what I do is, before I get ready to pour the second half, I drill a few holes. Now, you'll notice I got extra bolts here, and I have a big wide gap right in here that runs the whole length down this way. That's for a secret lure that's in the prototype stage, and that gets melted down by using old Senko worms. I call it the 10-pound bass killer, and you'll see that soon enough. But what you want to do is you want to be able to secure this, because polyester resin does have a flex to it. So you drill a hole. If this plate is a ½ inch, you drill a hole a ¼ inch down with a ¼ inch drill bit for a ¼ inch bolt. So you go half the distance and drop these in right before you pour. You might want to dip these in some cooking oil or Pam cooking spray. That way they will thread right out of the top piece when you back them off with a screwdriver or a drill after the top piece hardens. And it also helps to hold the top piece in place so that it doesn't shrink too much, because it does shrink a little bit. You don't want it creeping up on the edges. What it'll do is, well, you'll see it when it's done. Almost ready to pour. Okay, I got all my worms in, nice. I don't know how well you can see it, but I spread some oil around in there and then dumped out the excess. All you need is a real thin coat, almost like a brush coat. What I did is, when I put this back in the pan, I put a layer of clay underneath it, all around the edge, because I don't want any resin getting down below the mold and getting wasted in that way. There's a skunk out here somewhere. He stinks. I don't know where he is, but if he comes around me, I'm going to blast him one. Alright, so I'm going to mix up the rest of my resin and pour it in, and we're going to let it cure, and then we're going to take a look at our mold. Alright, now I took mine out of my pan. It's the next day, and the bolts, you'll have to use a drill to back them out, because these holes are all threaded, which is good for you in the future, because what will happen is when you go to lock these two molds together, it's going to act as a guide and really hold it strong. So when you pull it out of the pan, once you take the bolts out, you're going to notice that you have an overlap. The top portion is overlapped over the bottom, and it's probably going to be stuck to it. So what I do is I take 4 toggle bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 corners, and slowly drill them in, and it'll crack it loose, and the bottom will drop out. And just flip it over, and you will have Senko mold. It's a little dirty, I gotta clean it up. But I don't know how well you can see the lines there, but it picks up every little detail. That's just some junk in there that's not stuck in there. Gotta wash it out, clean it out, wash it with some soap. And you don't even have to oil this up when you pour into it, because the worms pull right out as soon as they harden up. It's pretty nice. I'm gonna make some, I'm gonna extend these up so that I can open it up and make 6 channels to pour with. And I'm also gonna do my my special 10-pound bass killer right here. You want to drill those holes through, finish drilling those through, and then it takes a little more work, but for right now it's almost there. Alright, what I like to do too is at the head of the molds you can kind of see them inside there, the 6 Senkos. What I'll do is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch up, I'll trim the fiberglass with a saw. I have a tabletop bandsaw. Works pretty good. Any kind of saw will really work decent, as long as you go really slow and you won't crack the fiberglass too much. Then I drill a pilot hole. I bolt it together, drill a pilot hole, hit the head of the worm with a very small drill bit. I got 2 drill bits right there. I use the real small one for the pilot hole, then I use the 1/4 inch bit. And once I get to that point, I use a countersink. This is a 1/2 inch countersink. It makes a nice little funnel to get into it. I don't go all the way into the mold with it. I just round off the top, so it makes it easy and fast to pour that hot plastic. And I mean, that's about it. I mean, you bolt it up, pour away. If you get in air pockets, then you need to put a vent hole in it. And if you need to put a vent hole in it, you put one in the top. And towards the tail end of it, you just drill a little tiny 1/8 of an inch hole in each one, right through the mold. And then you'd want to pour it on an angle like this, and it'll flow right down into it. And that air will let, the vent hole will let the air escape, and the plastic will take its place. And it works beautiful. I'm going to get ready to pour. Alright, I just poured one quick Senko to show you what it looks like when it comes out. Took it all apart. Mold's nice and clean. Pull it out nice and easy. Not bad. The end's a little different. Senko has a nice clean hole, but pours pretty good. So there's 6 of them, so you can mass produce them. And I also made another thing right here. This is what I call my 10-pound bass killer. This thing is massive, and it's loaded with salt. I poured this with the Yamamoto Senkos, and the action on it is just ridiculous. If there's a 10-pounder out there that wouldn't want to eat this monstrosity, I gotta clean up my mold a little bit. It's my first pour, and I got some fiberglass in there from tapping it. But that thing is bang. Compare it to a Senko. This Senko is, I think it's 5 inch or 5 3/4 inch, something like that. I got a little bubble of salt right there. It's massive, but it's huge. This mold needs to be cleaned up. I just drilled a 1/2 inch hole all the way down and tapped it, and then poured it with Senko worm melted down. But it's massive. There's a 10-pounder that wouldn't want to eat that. I think he's this very stupid 10-pounder. That's a free meal. That's like a filet mignon. And well, I hope this helps.